Hello and welcome to this month's Side Alpha Leadership. I'm your host, David Polikoff. Happy to have another fellow Dave from the Dave Club, Dave Olson. Dave works in Carroll County. We're going to talk a little bit about how that system is evolving. It's a new county system for career. It's still a combination system. And talk a little bit about not so much personal home life, but home life, what he does when he's off duty and where he's been. So without me going on any further, Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So tell everybody a little bit about yourself, some of your background, your experiences, and then we'll go from there.
I'm a first-generation firefighter for my family. Got started right out of high school when I went to college. Originally started off in the medical field, going for a paramedic degree in college. I was having way too much fun. Moved back home and when my parents moved to Maryland, and in order to keep up with the EMS training that I had at that point, I needed to become a firefighter. Went into my first firefighter 1 class, and it took about 15 minutes of that class, and I decided that I didn't want to go down the EMS path, and I want to be a firefighter. So started there pretty seriously in 93 in Anne Arundel County. Got hired by Howard County in May of 97. Did a little over 20 years there. Retired as a lieutenant. Originally was going to kind of get out of the fire service, but knew that my heart was still into it. So I continued with some the departments down in Virginia. Got hired by Rockingham County, and then stayed there for about 6 months, and then transferred over into the city of Harrisonburg. Was only down in that area for a little over a year when Washington County started their special operations team. So I came back up into the Maryland area. I worked in Washington for 4 years, and then in 2003, Carroll County decided that they wanted to have a department, a career department. So threw my name in the hat there and started off as a lieutenant there, and that's currently assigned to the Sykesville station.
We're definitely happy to have you. Yeah, I knew it's funny. I think my wife and your wife knew each other. We didn't know each other. I don't even think we ever ran calls together, but they knew each other, I guess, through a mutual friend from Karen, who was a Howard County nurse. My wife was a Howard County nurse, but finally met your wife when it was only what? They've known each other for 8 years or whatever, but met her at the banquet. Yeah, so Carroll County has always been, I would call it a quasi combination system. It was long before it was a county system. It was, we had our own career people where we hired, the individual corporations hired career people. And even though the money came from the county, we were still considered, they were still considered employees of the corporation. Very similar to what Montgomery County, where I started working, was. I got hired through the corporation, and then the county took over, and then we became county employees. So Carroll County, basically, the 14 corporations got together, not to bring all the politics into it, but they decided, hey, look, it's going to be easier for you guys, the county, to take the employees and let them be county employees than it is for us to try to manage, because it was very difficult to keep people in. And it was like, if somebody called in sick, then we're running short. So now, we're not really having that issue anymore. So I think it was definitely a good thing. And I think it's probably goes down in history the first time that we've had a unanimous decision of volunteer corporations saying, yes, we want this. So it was not forced down anybody's throat. We were actually very happy that the county was going to take that off our shoulders. And it's been bumpy, but I mean, we're starting a system from scratch. And we were fortunate that they came to us and asked if we would be willing to take officers, and we said absolutely. And we had always had drivers, so they wanted to put an officer in with the driver, and our corporation chief had no issue with that. The senior staff, we didn't have any issue with it. It board of directors, it was welcome, because we knew there was bumps in the beginning, but we knew getting that first piece on the street is vital. And I know you volunteer in your hometown. It is not. Everybody knows that the volunteer ranks are dwindling because people work for a living, families, and things like that. So the daytimes are very difficult for getting that apparatus on the street. And I think between some bumps and grinds here and there, we're fortunate that we're getting that first engine or truck or rescue squad, whatever is due, on the street. Volunteers can come to the firehouse and pick up the rest of the equipment that's there. A little bumpy in the beginning, but I think that it's worked out really well. And I know from a fact that 3 o'clock in the morning, I don't have to get out of bed to chase a Medicare down the street. The engine company's getting out, but it's allowing the volunteers to say, hey, the next call that comes in, you guys are going to have to go to the station or go to the station
Yeah, it
now.
allows them to
But
focus the free time that they do have to focus on those critical calls.
yeah, and we do get a majority of our calls during the day. It is a bedroom community, but a lot of people go to work. But we also have an ass ton of nursing homes in our first two area, so that keeps everybody busy all day long. Some large nursing homes, but and then I think just about everybody in Carroll County is running medic units. There's probably a couple of BLS units, but for the majority, they're medic units, and we're running two out of our station as well.
Yeah.
So moving with that, obviously, you're the first. We have four lieutenants on the shift, or four lieutenants, four shifts. You were in the first round that got hired. What are some of the things that you kind of bumped up against coming in? Did you know anybody at Sykesville when you came there? Kind of sort of know people. I know when you worked in Howard County, we border Howard County, but you worked in the cool part of Howard County where you didn't really come into Carroll that often.
I knew some names and some faces. The only person that I really had any contact with was Chief Ruck. I had worked with him previously on an investigation in Frederick. I was a safety officer during one of the investigations there, and that's how I got to know him a little bit. So when I did the interview process, he was on the interview panel. So it's kind of nice to see a face that I recognized. And about that, that was the only person that I really knew. Originally, I kind of had my heart set to stay in the core of Carroll County in the Westminster area. And I was told pretty quickly that I was going to be going down to the south side down there. And very happy that I didn't get my way on that one.
We'll just leave it at that. But you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. We're happy that you're there, but may not be as busy as they are in Westminster. But
I don't need to
things
be, I
it
don't need that
runs
busy
smooth where we
anymore.
are.
Yeah. I don't need to be that busy anymore.
What so what are some of the challenges that you came up against? I mean, to literally talk to somebody that fresh a fresh system, being, I don't even know if they gave you marching orders when you got hired. It was like, hey, you're a lieutenant, you're going there. I know you did spend some time at the academy before you came to the station, but what are some of the things that you bumped up against with your with the government, with the county, with your people?
The marching orders that I got were pretty clear. Go down there, develop a relationship, and build a combination system as I understand combination system should be. That was about the extent of it. The hurdles that we ran into started, I would say, started at day one when we really started to staff the county. We brought in 68 people in one day. Was the largest hiring that the county had ever done at any point. And during the morning session when they were getting all of the paperwork together for HR, we made reference to the shift commander's bunk room and that there was some staplers there and some other stuff that we could use to do this. HR was kind of taken aback that there was a bunk room, and we started to explain to them that we were going to be there for 24-hour shifts. And it kind of dawned on them that they didn't know that this endeavor they were getting into was going to be putting males and females on the same shift in the same bunk room together for 24 hours. So, right off the bat, we knew that the learning curve was going to be pretty steep. Getting the county organizations that outside of the fire department to understand how we do business has been a challenge. It's been good. We've come a long way, but there's still a lot for everybody to kind of learn from. Other than that, it was a blank sheet of paper with very basic orders, very basic operating standards, and trying to get all of the people to be marching in step, right down to having the correct uniform on each day. So we really started at a difficult point, but have come quite a long ways.
Yeah, I think it's funny that firefighters. I mean, Sykesville's fortunate. We have individual dorms, so you don't have people sleeping in your dorm. It's just one per room. It's supposed to be one per room. Um, you know, for the average firefighter, I mean, we understand that you get bunk rooms or gang bunk rooms, and male and female sleep in the same dorm style room. It's not like we're having pillow fights and running around naked. And the fact that people that aren't in the fire service, first of all, they go, you sleep at night? Well,
Mhm.
yeah, don't you? What if there's a call? They'll let us know. So the public has a hard time understanding it. And then it's like, well, do you get paid when you're asleep? Yeah. Do you get paid when you go to the bathroom at work? You don't punch out, do you? You
Mhm.
know, we're there. And so it's the civilians that have the hard time understanding. It's funny that HR didn't recognize that, don't you think that the volunteers sleep at the firehouse? Get the fire apparatus out. I mean, some do. But
I think they're very focused on a lot of just the sheer size of the administrative monster that they were taking over. That many people, that much retirement paperwork, building the files. They never really considered the day-to-day operation side to it. So when we started making little comments about our lifestyles and stuff, you could tell that they just really didn't have much of an understanding for it because they had never had a county run system. So it was that was a little bit of a challenge, but no, they've come a long way. They understand a lot more of what we do, and it's improving pretty rapidly.
yeah, it's funny because it seemed like, when everybody started to us, it was just a parallel move with just new faces. And
Mhm.
we knew that some of the people that we hired were not coming along, and the ones that did were probably gonna go to other stations. So we knew we were getting new people all the way around. So there was a little I could say I was excited to see that we were gonna actually have some officers in the station. I'm a huge proponent of, if you've got career people in the station, there should be some supervision in there. We used to run it that way in Montgomery County. We have a few stations in Frederick that don't have officers in the station, but they have career people. But I just think it's a good protection all the way around for the county, for the employees, for the volunteers, to ensure that we have supervision in the station. Now I know not every station in Carroll has an
Yeah.
officer yet. They'll eventually get there, but
No, actually,
I
of the
good.
13 stations that we staff, only 3 of them have officers in for each shift. There is a current push right now to expand that, and just in normal fire department lifestyle, they realize that that's one component that they definitely need to put into place.
Yeah, and I think it's important that where you have career people, there has to be that protection built in of having a supervisor there that's there to guide, to help, or to, hey, nope, we're not doing that type of thing. Just to keep people out of trouble. It's not really even to keep the peace. It's more to just make sure that everybody, is there doing the right thing. We're very fortunate with the career people we have. We goof with all the officers, but everybody brings something to the table, all shifts, and the medics there, they definitely can't say that they're not busy because they are busy. They're on the road. I think they're getting their medic skills in. I think some of it was a culture shock when some people got there, the amount of calls that they're running, and it's like one will go out, then the next one goes out, and then the manpower piece goes out, then another manpower piece goes out. So I have 4 calls back to back. So I think that it was an eye opener for some of these newer folks that were coming in. Of the central part of Carroll County and the south side of Carroll County is pretty busy. So you didn't get a chance to really slow down a little bit because you're still running a decent amount of calls. I don't think any day is a slow day for you. It has its moments, but I think for the most part, you're always getting into something. And let's move on from there. Talking about getting into something, let's talk a little bit about the training. I think it's funny. I want to ask you, and I want people to understand the type of officership training that all the lieutenants went through, and are they moving forward to improve that? I talk a lot about officer candidate school and things like that. I think when you're starting at ground zero on day one with, well, who's going to train the lieutenants? Especially new people that are coming in that have never been officers before. And there was really no officers that were above that have been officers in Carroll County. What was that like of trying to get, minus the HR stuff and all the administrative stuff, but more of the tactical side of it and actually running a shift?
Most of what we did, we did about 10 weeks of day work when we first got hired, and most of that was based off of assisting with the hiring process with the first and second round of hires that we did. There was a pretty fair amount of basic administrative policy writing, understanding how we're going to do leave, understanding holdover policies, uniform policies, those types of things. A little bit of the staffing and how we were going to utilize EMS staffing on some calls, but most of our time was spent on the hiring process because they just didn't have the staff to do it. They when we got hired, there was legitimately 3 people in the department. There were 3 day work administrative officers. So when they brought on the 12 station lieutenants, we took on the hiring roles for quite a bit of it. We did a little bit of tactical stuff, more of the understanding of how the county operates. Those of us that came in from the outside that didn't know Carroll's operating system, we did some training with some of that. But from there, we really haven't done a lot more on it. I think what's really kind of held us back is the idea that they were going to be redeveloping the operational policies in the county, and those have only come out at about 2 months ago now. We have started it at the firefighter level with most of that, understanding the initial operations and the expectations of radio reports when you're arriving on the scene. There has been discussions about some of the tactics and some leadership stuff with the officers. As we get into the colder months, those are some things that we can do indoors. But right now, we're focusing more with the firefighters, getting them everybody in step with the new policies coming out. Most of the lieutenants in the system had seen the policies prior to them being released, or had some conversations with the chiefs with them. So we kind of had an idea what was coming. Now we're trying to get the firefighters up to speed so they have an idea. Especially with the fact is only 3 of the 13 stations have lieutenants. We need to get all the other stations understanding what's the expectations. But there is plans to do some tactics and some leadership stuff with lieutenants here in the colder months.
I think it's gone really well. They've rewritten some of the added to the incident command policy and added to the firefighting, the structural firefighting policy, and I think the on-scene reports are actually really good, considering that it's something that has just been pushed out over the last 3 or 4 months. It didn't, and again, we're dealing with a small pool of career lieutenants, but I even think listening to the volunteer officers that are arriving on the scene, the chief officers, and they're giving it's becoming more and more consistent, which I find extremely important. That everybody is operating off the same sheet of music, and I haven't seen or heard any pushback of like, oh, I'm not doing that. That's stupid. It's more of I hear people truly trying to make sure that they're hitting the points of their on scene reports and things like that. So to me, for such a new system, we're still not getting that kicking, screaming down the hallway type thing of pushback of I don't want to do it this way. We've always done it this way. I haven't heard much of that. Now, granted, we're on a bubble in the South Side, but I have not heard a lot of pushback of I don't want to do that, because a lot of the people that are riding the apparatus, volunteer wise, are young new career officers, even the chief officers that we have. I'd say a majority of our chief officers are fairly young, and I think that they are, including me. I think that it is well accepted that this is the right thing to do, and I think a lot of that has to do with some of the chief officers that do have a lot of influence in the county to embrace it and say this is the right thing to do, and we really need to strive to do that. I know they talk a lot about that in the FROPS, or the Fire Operations Committee, and the career officers are part of that, or the career of senior staff is part of that. So everybody's getting the same message, and I think that that's what's truly important when it comes to operating on the tactical side with the radios and the transmission. We're all on the same page. I think it's
Right.
important.
The policy was also it's a very clean, especially the radio policy that we have. It's very down to earth. It's very clean. It's a very straightforward information things. They really haven't bought into a lot of the wordy style of radio reports. Straightforward, very clean, very organized stuff. So it's not something that a lot of people would push back on. So it's been a very good policy so far. And all of the operational policies, I've heard very little concern about how we're doing a lot of that. So it's that's been a good start. It's nice to see that out of the gate with the first global county-wide addressing these issues. There's been a little bit of pushback on the command stuff. That's just kind of the growing pains with understanding different roles and responsibilities between the career and the volunteer. All stuff that you would expect in any solid system like this. But nothing that has really derailed the train in any form or fashion.
I think when it comes to the command stuff, that there's more of us out there than not that understand that when we run incident command, we need to make sure that we're doing it consistently in the same way. And we didn't have a lot of that. It was similar, but it was like, oh, well, this chief works over in this jurisdiction over across the line over here, and he does that stuff on the radio, but how he does it at work. And then this person works over here. They bring that stuff over here. And, I've always been like, doesn't matter where you work. We got to do it the way we do it in Carroll County. And I think slowly we're seeing that. A lot of any of the pushback you're seeing is probably coming from the chief officers that never embraced the NIMS and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And to me, it's important, especially now that we're doing a lot of mutual aid and we're running with a lot of other companies, and they're doing it that way. So we need to make sure we're talking the same way. But I think overall, big picture, I think things are running pretty smooth for a system that's starting from scratch. Literally, not even 3 years old yet. It'll be 3 years old next year. We've gone through. We had a chief who he wasn't there very long, and then the guy that we have now, Chief Robinson, has been in for at least 2 years, I believe now. of the three of it, the thing's been together. Like I said, for a brand new system, being a brand new true combination system, I'd like to think that any of the growing pains that that you would think would happen, it's not really happening. It was a good transition, and I think that on the calls we've run a handful of fires, and it seems to be working well. And I think that it's only good as we move forward, provided we continue to have strong leadership on both sides. It's just going to move forward. So let's talk a little bit about station life and being brand new driver, brand new medics, people you never even knew. I think maybe you knew your driver, so you were fortunate in that aspect.
Yeah.
But with the medics, being it's you and him, and then the shift full of EMTs and medics that are getting the units out and quite busy. How's that working out? And the emphasis on training. We'll talk a little bit about that too.
It's been pretty good. We started off with some shaky ground, trying to get everybody operating under the same concepts and the expectations for the medics. They tightened down pretty quickly in the county when they hired everybody, that they really wanted to make sure they were following as they were starting to develop the Carroll County way of EMS. There was such a wide range of people that we hired, and so many of them at such a rapid pace, that we had so much influence from different places trying to get everybody operating the same way, even just the verbiage. As funny as it was, is trying to get everybody to write the EMS reports in a certain fashion. They're trying to get everybody to kind of standardize, and watching some very type A personalities push back on some of that. But trying to get them to understand is, if you can get the consistency across the board, that information flows a lot better when they're looking for stuff. We've had all of the normal challenges. We started off, a little bit of some difficulty on EMS supplies, going from the independent corporations to a countywide purchasing style. Found out very quickly that we needed to order more stuff than we were, so there were some shortages here and there. We've overcome a lot of that. How often we should be ordering EMS supplies in the station, how we're going to get them there, really from the very bottom up, having to build the entire system. And a lot of it is just by trial and error. Um, but I can say that I have watched the system every time that we've reached out and said, "Hey, this isn't working. We need to make adjustments." The administration and the department as a whole has embraced the need to make those changes. So they've done a very good job, and we've kind of got on a very balanced level now. But you figure you've got our station that runs, 3,000-4,000 EMS runs a year, and they're 20 minutes, 25-minute transport times, where you're using up a lot more equipment. And trying to explain to that, we go deeper into the protocols on our call, with the incidents we run, because of the distance that we've got to transport. So explaining to them that we need more of stuff that they don't quite understand. So there was a lot of that starting off. It's gotten much better. Trying to get all the medics to understand how we're going to operate. Cardiac arrest for the first couple months were very hectic. Now everybody not quite sure what position they're supposed to do. A lot of communications, a lot of discussions after those critical calls. Hey, what's your responsibility? What should you be doing? Who really has got the skill set to assist, with ALS stuff. It's been a consistent learning curve, and we're starting to get to the point now. I can talk for my shift is really starting to get to a point where it's we're firing on all cylinders, and those uh, very complex calls run smooth. People kind of know where they're supposed to be. People understand that, the supporting roles that they have to take. So we're just about at that point where we really should be as a company. And again, it's taken 2 years. The good thing is the administration does not believe in random transfers. So we've been able to maintain the shift that we have. So we're able to, to build on that. So it's been good. That's been a little bit of a challenge with the medic units, and getting two medic units and understanding who's taking what call, and being kind of a little bit of an outpost in the county when we do have those critical calls that need both medics to run them. So you've got the second ALS provider there, but we've gotten to the point now where we're doing well. We're doing well with that.
And I think, that's a harp on EMS. I think understanding that, when you get that critical care call, whether it's a cardiac arrest, unconscious person, whatever, dropping 2 medic units out of the station right away, a lot of people are like, well, that's a waste. What if there's another call that comes in? But we do a good job once you arrive on the scene and realize, okay, the patient's stable or whatever, that medic unit's in service on the scene, or they're free to move to another call real quick if they have to.
Yeah,
So it's
that's one
never
of the
been an issue.
yeah, that's one of the things that it was kind of the understanding that we're given the autonomy as officers to make those decisions, knowing full well what we really have got to pay attention to is the delivery of service. So once we have those critical ALS skills taken care of on those complex calls, pretty quickly, once it's maintaining that incident, we put one of the medic units in service on the scene. And it's actually quite common for them to get pulled off of that cardiac arrest or trauma call to go run another incident in the first due. And it's very little impact on the call after that once we get those initial ALS skills done.
Let's move forward a little bit and talk about, people need to understand that not only are you doing the hiring, there's no recruit class. So all of this stuff we're doing is on the fly. So you look at somebody that's on paper, they got their application in, you interview them, they interview okay, but you have no idea what you're going to get when they get in the station until you start to actually start training and things like that. What's the challenge been like without having, going on 3 years now, no recruit classes, and what's that look like for the future?
It's been difficult. That has been a definite challenge for us. I've always felt that the recruit classes are critically important because it gets everybody, the whole concept of bringing a group together, kind of breaking them down and building them back up so they begin to operate with the understanding of how the jurisdiction wants their firefighters to work. We haven't had the ability to do that for a number of reasons. One is we just did not have the depth of staffing. That was one thing. We just didn't have the people. We were recently, I believe it was this past April, we actually got our academy status to be able to teach at the training center in Carroll. That was a project which they had worked on getting. So that was a piece that needed to be done. They made an attempt in last year's budget year to put in 2 day work lieutenants for training at the training center, starting to build that staff up there to be able to do those types of the recruit classes and to do the training through the county. Those positions weren't authorized. They're going back again this year. They're actually, from what I understand, they're asking for up to 4 of them now. I think they recognize the need for having that academy. There's also been a little bit of the hurdle with the facility itself. We're kind of in limbo, getting ready to do a large scale expansion of the training center. There's been a plan to put in a new burn building, a new extrication area, put in more drill grounds, a lot of those types of stuff. So there's always been kind of waiting on that. A lot of the PFAF issues with the soil. So they've been jumping through those hoops. So we've been kind of held back on that. So once we kind of get some of these dominoes taken care of, I think it'll quickly advance into, we will start to hire the small groups and be able to do academy classes. The facility itself isn't ideal when it comes to having like the locker room space and those types of things. It's not bad, but you wouldn't be able to do a large group. And that's something that may come in time, but at least something that we're able to start off and validate skills and build skills and understanding that we're supposed to do it a certain way. We're supposed to, there's a certain Carroll County mentality that we need to begin to instill with the new hires. Again, like the medics, trying to get everybody on the same page together, coming from all different backgrounds. It's been a challenge. It's definitely been a challenge.
And then we'll round this out. Talk a little bit about station life. And, we talked offline and we joke on you because your attention to detail is very keen, to put it lightly. But, I get the concept, but you know how firemen are. If we ever have a chance that we can, fuck with somebody, we're going to do that.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that to me, the way I see it is that you ask for certain things, you want them done a specific way. And then when you go back and look at it, are they doing it that way? If they're not, then they're either not listening to you or they don't care. And either one of those scenarios is not good. And you can only account for your shift, 1/4 of the shifts that are there. Obviously, everybody does their own thing, but I think that you hammer it in, and even the volunteers have picked up on that as well. So let's talk a little bit about station life, your training regimen. I know you're always trying to get into something there. It's sometimes almost impossible to get with the medics to try to get them to do some stuff. I know we do put them in positions where we need them to get their gear on. Some are qualified as interior, some are not, but more often than not, you'll hear both medic units run. If we're running a full assignment in our first due, they'll both go because we're probably going to put one of them in play. and we have to handle one emergency at a time. So let's talk a little bit about station life, your attention to detail, and what you're looking to get out of your people.
I've been taught by some very good people. I've been blessed having some great mentors, and one of the things that was really instilled in my head is, the devil's in the details. It's the little things. One of the things that I take a lot of ribbing for at 12 is my attention to hand lines. Clearly remember when I worked in Howard, we listened to a fire other side of the county at night, called a mayday on the fire. Things were not going well. A lot of challenges they had. They were able to overcome it. Nobody was injured. There was a lot of miscommunication and people not being where they're supposed to be. And then talking to the guys the next morning of what happened, the fire started off going downhill in a hurry when the initial hand line that was advanced off the engine, they found it not connected in the bed of the crosslay. So the entire 200-foot section came out. So they dropped it and they went to grab the second one, and then that entire 200-foot crosslay also was not connected, and that came out. And from there, I kind of just remembered in the back of my head, I'm like, you know what? I don't want that to happen to me. So hand lines has become one of the things that, the attention to detail for me is kind of a big one. I equate it to a law enforcement. I've never seen an officer hand his firearm to another officer and said, here, load this for me. And that's the way that I view hand lines. So when we do the hand lines, it's very specific. When the lines come off, before they go back on, they get rolled. And when they get rolled at that point, I don't like people unrolling them to put them back on. I'd rather have them put them on the ground and unroll it as you put it back on. It's just a thing for me to it keeps the air out of them. The other thing which is a very good natured ribbing for me is the stripes. I like the stripes to be in a certain way. It's not an OCD thing so much. Is the fact is if I look at an engine, if I look at a company that has all of their equipment very regimented, they're put on the same way each time. If those stripes are showing and it's racked specifically that way each time, then I know there's an attention to detail, there's a focus as they're doing those things. That handline is hypercritical for us. So if I know that handline has been put back on with a lot of focus and a lot of detail, then I can trust that line. And so each time that we pull these lines, it's the same regimented way of putting it back on. The consistency of doing it right the first time. Drive my guys nuts. Yesterday morning on shift, we pulled 4 hand lines off because they weren't 100% perfect. There was a little bit of air in one, there's some water in the other ones. And I told them, I said, let's pull them off. Let's get them straightened up. Let's get them right back on. And the guys kind of laughed with me. But the same thing is the guys that I've worked with previously in my career, they'll tell you is they can run hand lines because it's the focus of that. But that goes on into other things. Did you check your bottle in the morning? Every single morning is the consistency of doing the little steps. There's 4 rigs in Sykesville that we have to check. Every morning, all 4 cylinders of the seat that I sit in, I check every one of those air packs. I reboot every computer. I check every thermal imager. I make sure that my radio is charged. I make sure that it's in the proper channel. I do all those things. It's the attention to detail to put yourself in a position of success when those bells go off. And I harp it on with the other guys, and I see it from time to time where they go back and they look and they understand it. We're getting ready to do cross staffing and actually pulling staffing off of the EMS units to staff the suppression pieces. That policy is coming out very shortly for us. And they got a little eye opener yesterday in conversation telling them that when it's time, when that policy goes into effect, they're going to be expected to be able to advance those hand lines. It's my responsibility to get them ready for that. And right now, that training regiment for us is absolutely being able to get that initial hand line properly advanced, properly stretched, and ready to go in. And then on top of that is the discipline that they're not going to have any mission creep beyond what they're supposed to be doing, the steps that they're supposed to go to. That's the focus right now. It's basically just trying to get them to walk like a duck and quack like a duck at the moment.
Yeah, and a couple things. I did talk to Mercedes specifically, our hose manufacturer. They do not make hose lines without stripes because we could have just gotten rid of that whole issue. But all seriousness, I feel the same way. When it comes to tools, I've always been a tool person. I don't like the tools being rusty or dirty. If you had a fire, you bring them back, you scrub them down, you get all the drywall off of them. I don't like paint on my tools except for the hooks. Axes, I like to be stripped and cleaned, and then make sure that they're oiled up. I don't like any rust. To me, it is, if your fire engine is clean, if your tools are clean, then that means that people are spending the time taking attention to that detail. They're going through the compartments. They're looking at you open up a compartment. There's no oil in the compartments. The saws are topped off. Everything's arranged like it's supposed to be. That means that every morning, whether you're a career volunteer, you're actually
Mm.
opening up the compartments, you're looking inside, you're putting your hands on stuff. If something is dirty, it's getting cleaned. That means that they're doing solid apparatus checks, so when we do run that call, the tools are where they're supposed to be, they're in good working order, and they're ready to go. I can't stand a sloppy looking, fire engine. Like I said, we'll give you a hard time about the hose lines and everything, but I think what's important is if you're pulling 4 hose lines off so you can make sure that they're pulled correctly, at 3 o'clock in the morning, they're going to know how to pull that line, but they're also going to know how to repack it. And when you had said something, we pull and repack our own lines. We may have 3 or 4 other companies come help us load hose on, but the first 2 or 3 people in line are
Yep.
Sykesville people. We're putting that hose on
Mm.
ourselves. The rest of the guys can just feed us line. And it's like that anywhere I go. If I'm in Frederick and I run something, I get there, I'll probably be the 5th or 6th person on the line, pushing hose up there. I'm not going to pack those guys' lines for them because they're the ones that are going to have to pull them.
Yeah, it's
And I
it's
think
it's
it's
that pride in
important
that
that you make
engine.
sure that you take care of your equipment and
Yeah.
and your hose line.
Yeah, the other thing I've seen is when you spend that time and you're pulling the tools off and you're cleaning them and you're tending to all of those things, the conversations start with them. And it goes from doing the weekly on a compartment or the ladders or something, and very quickly it goes into a 15 or 20 minute discussion on throwing a ladder in a certain environment, or positioning of a tool, and it just kind of expands from there. Sitting at the kitchen table on your phone, yeah, you may have some conversations, but being that hands on with those tools and having those conversations, it generates that little bit of training each time that you do that. And eventually, it's you do it over and over and over again. Those guys do start to pick up on stuff where they'll be able to draw back on those conversations and those skills on an incident.
And, it's funny, I come in on all the shifts, when I get off work in the afternoon, I come in, but I usually just sit down with you because we have good spirited conversations and, we argue back and forth, but it's more of an exchange of information. I'm learning, like, I heard this and what's going on with that. And, you know, you learn things from people's perspective of how they see things because it's not always how I want it done. Is how is it getting done? And oh, I never thought about it that way. And it's good to learn something. So, I enjoy the fire department conversations. And when I was a battalion chief in Montgomery, I used to tell the guys, if you don't want me to stay for a long time at your station, don't start talking fireman shit at the kitchen table because I'm going to be engaged. I just like hearing what people's perspectives are of the job, of the tools, things, how to make things better. There's a lot of good ideas that are out there, and you can't always sit down with every officer to get that spirited conversation or somebody that actually has been putting a lot of thought into things of how can we make this better. Hey, I want to change this one little thing because it's been a stumbling block for us, and if we did it this way, I think it'll be a little bit easier. And that's one thing I think I can safely say that at Sykesville we've been pretty open to what the guys bring to the table. We go out back if we, in our little extrication area there. I know you guys have helped us put a lot of our rescue squad together, our new rescue squad, and had seen how things work on other rescue squads from around areas, whether it be from where you work, where you volunteer. Bring those in with us. We look at it and go, hey, that really works. It's going to save some time to be able to, to stabilize the vehicle real quick. Or, hey, how are we going to repack this 400-foot line? So not only can we pull it easily, it's easy to repack where you don't have to have a slide ruler and protractors and shit like that.
Yeah.
I think that having those conversations, being open to that, change is not a bad thing, even though that's the two things that firemen hate are change and the way things are. Change is not a bad thing, especially if it's going to make our job a little bit easier. It's going to make us a little more efficient, but it also, I would hope at the end of the day, it says, hey, you know what? That guy listens to me. He values my opinion. This is something that I brought to the table, and now we're using that. Not, hey, those guys are dumb. They don't know what they're doing. And we should be doing it this way because they're dumb. That's why we're doing it this way. It's more of never thought about it that way, never saw it that way. I think that everybody brings value to the table, and that's why I like coming in, just sitting down and just kind of BSing for half hour, 45 minutes, and before I go home, you change into some regular street clothes. So I think those conversations are valuable, and I also like listening in the mornings because I don't work on Fridays because it's the senior staff schedule. But when you guys are doing your lineup, just hearing the exchange of information, I think the lineup is probably one of the most important parts of the day. And I think you've got people that have probably never been in a career department before now in a career department, seeing what a lineup is and what the expectations are, and coming to work every day that you're going to sometimes have to work. How's that transition been for some of your younger, and they are young, some of your younger medics that are coming in?
They've actually liked it a lot. It's good. The big thing with it is they feel like they're being given information and not being treated like a mushroom. I've always told them, if I know something that goes on in the county, if it's information that's going to impact them, it's my responsibility as an officer to let them know. In my position, there's a lot of things that I can't talk about with them, but I can also kind of guide them either towards something or away from something. So I always make the recommendation. I say, take it from me, this would be a really good idea if you did this or not did this. And it's kind of a way of my hinting that, hey, there's some things going on. You should kind of avoid this or head towards this. And all of it is making sure that they understand what's going on in the station. They understand the passing of information across the shifts, that it's not for independent departments. We do the best we can to not create that environment. They get the information just like everybody else does, and at the end of that information pass onto them, I go around the table and I say, do they have anything, so that they also feel that if they've got something to say, that they are also part of that communication side to it, so that they never feel that they just don't know what's going on. Because of our location in the county, we're not in the middle of all of the gossip, which I like a lot. Kind of makes things easier, but it's also they're not getting a lot of the information flow a lot of the times. A lot of the patients that they do transport, they're going out of county. They're going to Baltimore County for the transports. So they're not interacting with a lot of the other medic units from the county. So they do kind of get a little bit of that information vacuum. So that's one reason why we do the transition in the morning. They understand what's going on. We set the expectation of what's going on for the day, any pertinent information for traffic, training, anything coming up, reminding them on the policies, procedures. And then about every 2 or 3 shifts or so, we start doing the street drills, and I start rattling off streets, like some of the major streets out there, and kind of go around the table. Hey, how do you get to this street? What's this street? Where's it start? Where does it end? Hey, tell me about the buildings on the street. We start developing it from there. So it gives you the opportunity to have that communication. Everybody kind of gels as the shift in the morning, and people kind of understand that we're a group, we're an actual team to do it, and it kind of sets the tone for the day, and it's been pretty successful.
Well, we're definitely happy that things we have, whatever roadblocks that we are stumbling blocks that we've had, they've been minor, and
Mhm.
usually it's more of a communication thing. Once we get that ironed out, I know that myself and the other deputies and the fire chief at the corporation are always there to listen and try to exchange that information. I think we talk quite a bit. I don't know what it's like throughout the rest of the county if those chief officers are talking to the career people, but I know we're talking quite a bit to make sure that when we go out the door, you're riding in Sykesville apparatus. It's representing Sykesville, but as a whole, we're representing a department, Carroll County, whether you're a career or volunteer. We want to make sure that everybody's doing the right thing. So we appreciate definitely making Sykesville look good, because I know we get donations that come in for calls that were run, and you look it up and go like, yeah, there were no volunteers on that particular call, but all that money does go in the volunteer fund, which we do make sure that we
And
try to buy stuff for people.
we are, and I tell people, I said, we are well taken care of. If I do start to hear grumblings at the station, I tell them, I said, you guys need to see the other side, because I can tell you the grass is not greener. So no,
This is
it's
all they know. If
yes,
this is
yeah,
all you know, we have been around long enough to know that it's bad in other places.
yeah.
So, well, Dave, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm glad you were like me. You failed miserably at retirement. It's something that's I'm third generation, but it's been in my blood. It's been in your blood, and it just doesn't go away. I would I would definitely have to go out on. I ain't going out on a limb. I know that our wives are very understanding with the things that we come
Yes.
home with and the things that we do when we're home, when we're not home. But again, I appreciate you coming on the show, giving that a little bit of insight of building a fire department, a career department from the bottom floor. Everybody when they always say like, well, what do you need fire officer 3 and fire officer 4 for? Well, unfortunately, when you get into something like this is what it's for. For the most part, if you're not building a fire department from scratch, Carroll County is. So again, I appreciate you coming on and giving a little bit of insight on the daily operations as well as what it's like to just build something from scratch and progressing forward. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, man. Take care.
Take care. Thank you, sir.